So we're going to be tasting today on BourbonBlog.com. One of my favorite new releases that I've had in 2025. This is going to go down, I think, as one of those that you're going to know that you wanted to get a bottle of. You're going to be glad you did. It's High West. It's the Casa Noble Noble Share, and I have with us Tara Lindley joining us from High West, who's the director of sensory and new product development. How you doing, Tara?
Hello, I'm doing well, thank you.
Great, excellent. I've always been a big fan since the very beginning of High West and everything you've done, and of course, all the limited editions, all your core expressions. But never have I had in the history of my sipping of whiskey something quite like this. This is, and of course, I have to say, I love High West. I love Casa Noble. You've taken some rye whiskey and you finished it in not only tequila barrels, but it's gone in some other barrels too. Tell us what I'm tasting and how this all came about. I'm going to pour some here.
Right. So, it started with wanting to have, some kind of a liquid partnership with between High West and Casa Noble, both brands that are very respectable and of similar quality. And what we decided to do ultimately was create a blend of rye, which contains MGP rye and High West rye, aged 4 to 10-year-old, and finish it in some of those Casa Noble Marquez barrels. We also took a portion of that blend and finish it in Amburana barrels. And the way that I like to think about kind of the high level sensory of what we did here is this perfect trifecta. We have the rye whiskey blend, which brings in these beautiful rye botanicals. Those Casa Noble Marquez tequila barrels brings in this cooked agave note, and the Amburana barrels bring in some complexity with a little bit of cinnamon stick. Now that's just very high level. There's a lot of other sensory notes in there too we can get into, but that's kind of how I look at it from all those components and how they're playing together.
So nuanced from the fruits, one of the notes I noticed, but I noticed it had been written about, but also I noticed too is the mango, just wonderful fruit, wonderful. There's a wonderful butteriness too on this. I mean, when I think about older, well-aged bourbons, and cheers, by the way.
Cheers.
I know you have a bottle there too. When I think about older bourbons and just that wonderful smoothness, that buttery note that we get on very old bourbons and rye whiskeys, that's present, that creaminess. It's so nuanced, so delightful, but yet has boldness, spice, everything that we could ever hope for.
It does. And I really think what my favorite part about it is that cooked agave note that comes through.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the way that plays with the rye whiskey as well, because I think that is kind of playing and giving it maybe that buttery note that you're describing, that you're perceiving, and just giving it that underlying kind of perceived sweetness and depth.
Yeah, once you put it on the palate, and of course we know that tequila, mezcal, these have grown a lot. Of course, we've always been big fans, you and me, I know, but in the U.S., people have really gotten more into the premium, the more limited edition ones, and really finding those notes on other spirits that have been finished. So, how did you decide on? I know it's a favorite, but Casa Noble. So, how did that happen? How did the partnership happen?
So, with Casa Noble, Pepe has always been an excellent partner to work with as well. And, just the quality of the tequila that comes from the Casa Noble brand, we just love that. It aligns really well with what we're doing at High West, and also seemed like a really great pairing, so to speak, or complementary pairing between our rye whiskey and their tequila barrels.
And the Marquez de Casa Noble Añejo, that's not a bottle you see every day too. Tell us about that. What did you go for that particular expression as far as the barrels?
Right. And so the Añejo, that Marquez Añejo actually does have some extra Añejo barrels in there as well. But of course, because the Añejo is the youngest, it's called the Añejo. But, that with that being, kind of the higher end of, what Casa Noble has delivered, and of that tier and that beautiful bottle and that beautiful look, that was just of the quality that we wanted to use those barrels for this icon project.
And how long did it go in? How long did it sit in those?
So we had liquid in there for a minimum of 6 months. We had a couple different batches that went down. And so everything had at least 6 months of finishing on it with the tequila barrels. With the Amburana barrels, I mean, those were brand new. And that's something that, those are pretty impactful pretty quickly. So that was just a matter of weeks. And we tested those every single week. And we tested the tequila barrels maybe monthly. To monitor the impact along the way and make sure we were getting the sensory qualities that we're looking for.
So the blend is both yours and MGP's. Of course, yours is about, how old were you saying, up to 7-year-old?
Yep, 4 to 7-year-old.
4 to 7. The MGP in there is 4 to 10. Those were blended together, and then different portions went into Amburana and then tequila, or did it go from one place to the other?
All blended together and put down into the different types of barrels.
All those different types of barrels. So beautiful. And I've seen Amburana more and more the last 4 or 5 years. And I've seen it done well, and I've seen it almost too much on some expressions. What's the balance like that? And this is just in general, everyone's expressions that are out there, not yours per se, but there's a few of the brands I've had where it's been almost too much. Is it a pretty tough thing to balance the Amburana when it comes to just how powerful that is?
In my opinion, yes. And so, in tasting the spirit that was alone in the Amburana barrels, I mean, that comes off so strongly and overtly with cinnamon stick and just very strong cinnamon. And it overpowers, in my opinion, on its own. But using that, as a small portion of the blend, we're able to, leverage the amount of the cinnamon stick that we're getting out of there. So it's not overbearing. It's just an element of complexity.
Right. It's a nice subtleness. It has this wonderful, and I could almost say it's like this wonderful holiday note that cinnamon comes through, but it's not just overly holiday-like. There's that butteriness, there's the agave, there's so much. And again, if you're a rye whiskey fan, High West fan, look for this. This one is fairly limited. Do you even know how limited it is?
It's very limited.
Are you able to say? You probably know, but are you able to say how limited?
I'll be able to say it's very limited.
Very limited, and it is so beautiful. I love the label too. The artwork that you all have. Tell us about that. Is how that is inspired?
Yeah, I love the artwork as well. The mountain on the top represents, Utah, and the mountain on the bottom represents, Mexico. So we've got, the rye whiskey coming from, we've our High West whiskey,
Yes,
blended here in Utah, but just kind of showing the difference of the two landscapes of where, what we're blending here.
and again, you all are celebrating how many years now of making whiskey? I know it's quite a few, and you have some very old whiskey that's still aging.
Yep, we're coming up on 20 years next year.
20 years of making whiskey. So we're going to be seeing, I'm sure, some other releases that are very interesting with age, with expression. We love your core expressions. We love, of course, every winter we're hunting for Midwinter's Night's Dram and always enjoying that. And like I said, I think if you're a collector of that, if you've always loved that, I know you're going to love this one too. But I know there's some other things you're working on for this year. What can we look forward to?
So we did just recently release our High Country single malt. That's 100% High West own make. And what's been really exciting about that blend is that, we first released that in 2019. And, as we have had more time to build more inventory, we've been working on increasing the average age of that spirit, and it's starting to come into its own of where we really want this to go. And it has beautiful depth and complexity with that richness of the malt grain coming through, the cereal notes, just really beautiful. I'm really happy with the way it turned out this year. We also are working on another release of our Prisoner Share, which is a blend of bourbon and rye finished in red blend barrels from the Prisoner Wine Company, also part of Constellation Brands.
Yes.
And that'll be later this year. And then next year we'll have something very special. I don't have all the details on it yet, but it aligns with that special anniversary coming up.
that special anniversary, that 20-year anniversary coming up. And that'll be for 26.
That's right.
For 26, be watching for that. And if you are in Utah, you can find that High Country, that single malt. How old is that, by the way?
The High Country single malt, I believe, is ranging from about 4 to 8-year-old.
4 to 8-year-old. Okay, beautiful. And we love what's been happening with single malt, with the rules and regulations that have been approved, and just everyone that's making. I know you all do such wonderful whiskey there, and you're so talented, Tara. We really appreciate you and all you do for the world of whiskey.
Thank you. Thank you so
Absolutely. Much. And I put, if you are going to be visiting Utah, how to visit High West Distillery to grab one of those bottles or several of those bottles and to have a tour there at highwest.com. And of course, be watching for The Prisoner, for Midwinter's Night's Dram, and for much more to come that we can't tell you about quite yet. Is the Prisoner going to be very similar to how it's been before? Or is there going to be anything new?
So, with those particular releases, we kind of play with the flavor profile from year to year. It's still a bourbon and rye blend, like it has been the last 2 releases. But every year, we get different barrels, and those vintages are different on the wine side as well. So we pull out different complexities and different sensory notes with each of those years, and kind of look at how we play with those attributes when we're putting the blend together. So where we are right now is pretty different than the last 2 releases. We did a sensory a couple weeks ago where we looked at the other 2 releases next to what we're looking at in the lab right now, and much brighter, bolder fruit character so far, but we're not finished yet.
Excellent. And I would say the balance on your expressions too it's just so well done. On this one, I'm just getting the right balance of that cinnamon, the spice, the rye, the agave. I think, and I'm just guessing at this, but I feel like one of the things you really strive there for is balance.
Absolutely. And, we have a panel of sensory participants to give feedback as well, to make sure that we are hitting the balance. We are getting all those nuances. And what's so great about sensory is that, we all have different sensory capabilities. When I smell, cinnamon, it's different than what you actually smell when you're smelling and describing cinnamon too. And so getting all those perspectives as we build these blends so that we know that we're creating something that many people will love.
To me, that's one of the most important things about just a really well-made whiskey or a finish is the balance, even a cocktail. And you've done an incredible job there. Tara Lindley, the Director of Sensory and New Product Development at High West. Thanks so much for being with us on BourbonBlog. And
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. If there's still some out there, y'all, if you're fans, again, be looking for the Noble Share. Cheers.
Cheers.